Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm doing my August book haul, and this is going to be maybe a little bit different from usual for a couple of reasons. The first being that I left my camera on all night, all day, completely dead battery, and I've charged it up a little bit so that I could do this video now, so hopefully my battery won't die. But the reason that I'm doing this fairly quickly and doing this with a kind of half-charged battery is that author sister is on her way over right now. We're gonna do some podcast stuff, we're gonna have lunch, we're gonna do some booktube stuff, so you can expect to see her in some videos coming up soon, and it's gonna be really awesome. But I want to make sure I get all of my August books off of my shelf and onto the bookshelves before she comes, because there's a lot of them. So I'm gonna run through these super quick. Hopefully I won't get caught up in my own, like, you know, desire to just keep yammering and yammering as I always do. It's gonna be really quick. I'm gonna show you the books and maybe do like a one-sentence pitch or whatever, and then all of the books are gonna be linked down below in the description. So hopefully this won't be a super long video like my hauls usually are, but there are a lot of books to haul. I think I ended up with 15 to 20 books this month, which was not meant to happen. Not supposed to happen, but it did anyway. I feel like I'm always like, I meant to buy fewer books this month, and that just didn't happen, which is, I should stop being so surprised. But as per usual, I'm going to split these up into books that I received from publishers or from the author in one case, and I'm going to do another kind of section of books that I bought for myself. So let's get started. Actually, all of these books are from different publishers, every single one. I didn't get more than one review copy from a publisher this month at all, which is kind of fun and exciting. So just to start with the one that's maybe a little bit different from the books that I usually tend to haul, I have The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. This was from Vintage Books, and this paperback is out now. Ruth Ware is, of course, a hugely popular thriller writer, and I've never read any of her books before, but I've always wanted to because I've heard amazing things about them. This is one of the ones that I've been really excited to read and have had my eye on for a while, so of course I snapped up the opportunity to get a review copy. Basically, this book follows a woman, I think her name's Harriet. Yeah, Harriet Westaway. She receives a letter saying that an unknown kind of grandparent has left her a huge amount of money, and she is in debt, so she decides to lie, because this is not her relation, to take the money, and of course things are gonna go mad from there. This sounds really fun. I actually also have a copy of The Turn of the Key, which is her new one, that I'm borrowing from author sister, so I've got two Ruth Ware books, and I'm really excited to read her. The next book that I've got is one that's kind of, in a funny way, self-explanatory, but I've also talked about at great length in other videos. So this is one that you guys have probably seen before on this channel, but this is The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. This comes out from Orbit Books, I believe on the 26th of September. It's late September. This is kind of self-explanatory. It's what it says on the tin. It's the bone ships. It's about a world in which people kind of travel in these huge ships that are almost like cities made of dragon bones. So I don't know really a whole lot other than that, but I love RJ. I love RJ's books. I loved Age of Assassins. I'm listening to Blood of Assassins right now, and I'm super pumped to read this. This is on my September TBR. Next is another book that's on my September TBR. This is Deep Light by Frances Hardinge. This comes out in October, I think on October 31st from Macmillan Children's Books. I absolutely adored The Lie Tree, and I keep buying her books and not reading them. So I always say that she's one of my favorite authors, but really I've only read one of her books. But this looks phenomenal. It's another one I don't know a huge amount about, but I know it kind of takes place undersea, and there's something about gods, and I think there's two boys who are friends. This sounds wonderful. I completely trust Frances Hardinge to write an amazing book. There will be more in the description down below, but if you like your fantasy to have that kind of like dreamlike quality, you should definitely pick up her books because she's amazing. Then I have a book that I'm super pumped about because I loved this author's other two books, and I believe this is connected to that original duology, but it's not like a continuation. This is The Song of the Crimson Flower by Julie C. Dow. Her other duology, which I believe is called The Rise of the Empress, is amazing, is totally amazing. It's like a retelling of the evil queen kind of myth, because we always have evil queens in fairy tales, but we don't know a huge amount about them. So this kind of her take on the evil queen, which is amazing. You should totally read. And I believe that this is linked to that world, but it's not like a direct continuation. I know it's a love story. I believe the girl is very wealthy and kind of a higher class than the boy, and she rejects him, and everything goes from there. I don't know a huge amount about it, but she's one of my auto-buy authors. I will read anything she writes. She's absolutely amazing, and I just am so looking forward to this. I think this comes out in December in the UK. This is from Penguin Books, from Philomel. I will put the UK release date on the screen. I think it's October, November in the US, and December in the UK. I'll check. Next is a book that I have featured also in my September TBR. You're going to see a lot of stuff from my TBR in this video. This is Dragon Slayer by Duncan M. Hamilton. This comes out from Tor Books in the UK. I believe it came out in August, so it's already available. Duncan M. Hamilton is an author that I have never heard of before, but apparently is hugely popular, and I feel kind of bad about that. But I was really interested in, first off, the cover, because the cover is absolutely amazing. You can kind of see it. It's glossy, so you can also see the glare from my light. But this looks amazing, super high fantasy. I don't know a huge amount about it, but I love anything that has an interesting take on dragons, because I'm not hugely into dragons, but I like them when they're different, if that makes any sense. I recently read Blood of an Exile, which I received kind of around the same time as this. I got that at the end of July and this at the beginning of August. And they were a little bit too similar in terms of like the dragon slaying storyline. So I haven't read this one yet. I read that, but not this. This is one that I'm hoping to read soon because it sounds really, really interesting. And from Glance is another book that I have on my September TBR and is one that I've talked about at great length. This is A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. It is the next book in the First Law world. It is the start of a new trilogy. I've yammered about this so much. If you're interested in learning more about this, it comes out in September on the 17th, I believe, and you can see a ton of my other videos, or you can go ahead and check out the description down below. He's one of my favorite authors. The last book that I have to show you in this particular section of this video is a very special one with very good reason. One of the benefits of being related to an author is that you get their new book early. So I have an arc of my sister's book, The Whispers of War, by Julia Kelly. This comes out in January of 2020 from Gallery Books in the US, and I'm so pumped to read this. Her first historical fiction book, which is called The Light Over London, was amazing. I'm super biased. So totally biased. I will not even like pretend I'm not. But it was absolutely amazing. It was so good and so well written. It's one of those kind of dual timeline books where you have someone in the current modern day who discovers something about a person in the past, and then it's that person's story as well, and they kind of run parallel. This is going to be similar. Apparently it's going to have the dual timeline. However, it follows a group of friends in World War II Britain, and one of them is German, and she's declared an enemy alien, and her friends are trying to keep her out of an internment camp because Britain did have internment camps during World War II. This sounds so good. This sounds amazing, and Scottish Husband has already read it because he's super annoying, and he's getting favorite sister points right now, so I'm hoping to read this in September or October because it looks so good. I'm so happy. I'm so proud. I'm so proud, and I absolutely adore her books. I love historical fiction. It's just not something that I tend to read very often because I'm always reaching for fantasy and for sci-fi, but I think that this is going to give me a good historical fiction fix. So next I have all the books that I bought, and there are a bunch of them here. Surprise, surprise. But I am going to start with the 4 that I've actually already read, whether this month or in a previous month or in another life before BookTube. So the first ones will look a little bit familiar. I picked up a copy of The Dragon Republic and To Be Taught the Fortunate, R.F. Kuang, Becky Chambers. I read both of these last month. I had proofs of them, but I love them so much I wanted to keep my pre-orders and get the final copies. It's not something that I do very often because money and space. I can't really afford the space or the cash to buy finished copies of every single book that I read in ARC form, but the ones that are truly special I do. So I have a full review of this book. I talk about both of these in my July wrap-up, so I will link those down below. You can check out more. I have this little project that I am doing that I'm almost finished with. I am currently buying all of the British edition Harry Potter hardbacks. I have one left. I'm missing Goblet of Fire, so I'm finishing that project soon. It's kept me busy for a couple of years. So what I'm going to do next is find all of the Wheel of Time books and hardcover because I love this series so much. I discovered Path of Daggers, which is the 8th book, in a used bookshop here in Oxford Decided to pick it up, decided this would be my new project. I love Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time's amazing. You'll see some more Wheel of Time books here in this haul because I actually haven't finished the series yet, but I'm getting close and I'm super pumped for the Amazon series. So I'm fully back in Wheel of Time mode. Hopefully I want to finish the series at some point, but I would also really like to get these hardbacks because these covers are terrible and amazing and I absolutely adore them. And the last book that I've already read, I actually read this month. I showed it off in my August wrap-up video. I can't remember what month it is. This is The House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. I talk about this book extensively on this channel. I have done a vlog where I've read this. I've talked about this in my wrap-up. I'm talking about it now. I loved this book, even though there were certain parts of it that felt very kind of underwhelming, like some of the characters and the romance was super underwhelming, but the atmosphere of this book is amazing, and I've always wanted a 12 Dancing Princesses fairy tale retelling because that's my favorite fairy tale. I finally got it in this book. I just adored this so much. All of that stuff is linked down below if you want to see a little bit more. Now just moving on to the rest of the books that I bought this month. When I picked up The House of Salt and Sorrows at Foyles, which is an amazing, it was independent bookstore in London and now it's been bought by Waterstone, so they kind of left them alone. So it's independent enough bookstore in London that gets American copies of YA books, which is super exciting because we don't always get the same books as you guys do in the States because publishers haven't picked up the rights, but in Foyles you can sometimes find them, which is why I have House of Salt and Sorrows because that has not been published here in the UK. I also picked up Zodiac by Romina Russell, which is a YA science fiction book, which I've heard really good things about, and I also picked up a copy of The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. This is a new book, whereas this is an older book, and I think that this was featured in a particular subscription box recently, but I'm cutting down on subscription boxes because I get so much crap that I don't want just to get a copy of the book. So I bought the book because I have been really interested in this. It's just kind of YA fantasy magic. It sounds kind of creepy. There's a lot of magic surrounding like teeth and stuff like that. I don't really know, but it sounds really cool. This sounds really fun. It's been recommended by friends before, so both of those descriptions again are linked down below. And speaking of subscription boxes, I got a copy of Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir in my Illuma crate for the month of August. And the reason that I decided to get this is because this actually doesn't come out in the US, or sorry, this doesn't come out in the UK until long after the US date. So I think this comes out in October in the UK. I wanted this so badly. I have had my eye on this book for ages. It's got beautiful sprayed edges. It's got like an imprint thingy on the front that's foiled, and this book just sounds amazing. It sounds like one I'm gonna love. This is on my September TBR, but kind of in the low priorities. I'd like to read this next month maybe. It just sounds so cool. It's lesbian necromancer, space pirates with swords. That was all I needed to know about it. If you've read this yet, let me know because I'm dying to learn more. I also picked up a nonfiction book this month, which is a little unusual for me. I like nonfiction, but I tend to read it very slowly and sometimes get a little bit bored depending on what the book is, but this sounds really fascinating. This is The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenholt. My friend Amber from Books of Amber read this, I think in August, and she listened to the audiobook, and she was saying she really enjoyed it, so I decided to pick it up. I've had my eye on it for a while, and I'm very curious about this because I'm not hugely into Jack the Ripper. I love true crime. I'm not hugely into Jack the Ripper, but I love the fact that there's finally, after how many years, a book that focuses on the victims instead of on the man himself, assuming he's a man. He's probably a man. So I was very interested in this. I'm hoping to read this maybe in the winter because it sounds kind of like scary and true crimey, and I think that winter is the perfect time for that. So this is going to be an amazing book and a little bit different from the things I usually read. Also picked up the next two books in the Wheel of Time series. I got the American ones because I have the British ones and they're too classy and I don't like it. I need these, you can't even see them. I need these like ridiculous covers. They're so terrible and wonderful, but like these are I wouldn't say my childhood, but I started reading Wheel of Time when I first got back into fantasy after kind of middle school, and I picked up Eye of the World in 2011, January of 2011. Don't ask me how I remember that. And it like changed my life, and it's the reason that I am still reading fantasy to this day. So I have Crossroads of Twilight, which is book 10, and I have Knife of Dreams, which is book 11. I am so close to the end. There are 15 books if you include the prequel, which I do, and I'm really excited to read them. I'm really excited to finish the series. I'm also really not excited to finish the series because it's been part of my life for 8 years now, probably going to be longer than that by the time I finish. These books are brilliant. They're a hard sell to a modern reader. They're impossible to describe in 1 or 2 sentences. So go ahead and check them out. The Amazon series is coming out soon. They are like doing their casting announcements now. I'm so happy. I'm so excited for these. This is notoriously the worst book in the series. I've tried reading it twice now. This will be my 3rd try, but I gotta get through it to get to the rest of them. I just love Wheel of Time. I went to an event called Voyager Con at Waterstones Piccadilly, and it was amazing. It was so good. It was basically just after Worldcon, so they had a bunch of authors over, and they had this event. I'd like to think that it was for people who couldn't make it to Worldcon like me. I'd like to think that the publishers are being very kind and generous, but R.F. Kuang was there, S.A. Chakraborty was there, a bunch of amazing authors were there, and although I already had a copy of The Court of Broken Knives by Anna Smith Spark, I managed to meet her and was amazing. I'm not including this in this haul because I bought this ages ago, but I did meet Anna Stevens, who wrote Godblind. I picked up a copy of this book. I have this on ebook. I'm pretty sure I have a NetGalley copy of this too from ages ago, but I've heard amazing things about this. My friend Bethan has been like beating me over the head to read it for ages because I think it's one of her favorite books. Anna was lovely. She's amazing, and you know that I buy books because I really like the authors. And it's funny because it seems like grimdark authors are the nicest, kindest people, and they write like the most horrific books, which just something about that makes me so happy. So I'm really excited for this. I know basically nothing about it except there's a chapter that's really difficult to get through. We'll see how it goes, but I am super pumped for this. The last book in the trilogy, which I believe is Bloodchild, comes out this month. So I'm not in a huge rush, but I would like to read all of these and have them finished because apparently they're amazing and I want to support British fantasy authors. And the last 2 books that I have, I rescued from unhaul piles. So the first one is Romanov by Nadine Brands. I am really unsure about this one. I didn't want to buy it for full price because there's parts of it that sound kind of shady to me. I'm not sure what I'm gonna think of this, but one of my friends was unhauling it, so I bought the hardcover off of her. This is basically about the Romanovs, Anastasia, and presumably she escapes when her whole family is murdered, and I believe the love interest is possibly someone who had her family murdered. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know anything about this, but I know that she wrote that book Fox, which I think I got at Yelk, which is somewhere on the shelves, and she writes kind of historical fiction with a magical twist, so I'm very, very curious about this. Again, I didn't want to buy it for full price because I wasn't sure how it would go, but if you've read this, let me know. Let me know what you think. I've heard that the romance is a little bit troublesome, a little bit problematic, but I'm very curious anyway. The very last book that I have to show you, I rescued from another unhaul pile. This is Vaza in the Night by Sarah Porter. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know anything about this. I believe it's a Russian-inspired fairy tale, a similar kind of figure of folklore to Vazia, who's in The Bear and the Nightingale. I think they're kind of similar, maybe based on the same thing. I'm not entirely sure, but it takes place in Brooklyn. I love New York books because I used to live in New York. I have had my eye on this for a while. I can't speak because I love the cover, I love the kind of fairy tale aspect, and I love anything that's set in New York. So we'll see how this goes. I don't know anyone who's read this. I don't know anything about it. If you have read it, definitely let me know what you thought. That is it for this book haul. It's a lot of books. Hopefully I ran through this quickly. I don't really know. I did manage to finish this video before Author Sister showed up. I'm so pleased with myself, but sorry if it was a little bit scattered and maybe a little bit messier than usual, but I just wanted to get through this really quickly so I could show you the books that I got because I'm super excited for all of these. There's some really, really great stuff that I got this month. In the comments down below, I would love to hear if you have read any of these books, if you have a place maybe you would recommend I start, if you have them in your TBR, or if you hauled anything particularly great in the month of August. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.